So y'all tired of me talking about University of Michigan sports? Eat 'em up, Tigers. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about China stabilizing, the hurricane trade, subsiding. Hopefully, a lot of people are safe down there. Not as bad as expected. Delta Airlines, rough landing on earnings. Domino's Pizza in the green. It's a CPI day with none other than Blue Putnam. Ratings changes we'll cover. We got a lot to do here on this Thursday. It's your favorite morning show, Pre-Market Prep.
Welcome to Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep.
This is a volatile puppy here.
It's all about execution styles and strategies.
All right, good morning, traders and investors. Hitting a new all-time closing high yesterday at 41 and a quarter. We're off about 6 and a quarter handles, 58.35. Really no damage overnight. The buck flat at 102.70. TLT, holy macro, moving in on the 94 level, down 27 cents at 94.18. Crude up 67 cents at 73.91. Gold in the green by $4, 26.30. Silver up a dime, 30.77. Bitcoin up nearly $300 at 61,410. Let's bring in Triple D and AB. Let's get the sports and the birthdays out of the way quickly.
Is there more birthdays?
Well, we want to know how Spencer's birthday went.
Oh, it's good. Lots of fun. Yeah, like we never done that before, but we gave him the day off, did lots of fun things. Yesterday went out for lunch. It was good. We had a good day. He had a good day, turned 10, so big 10 birthday. And Tigers, Joel, Tigers.
Yeah. Oh, I went to the game, had an absolute blast. The Detroit Electric, great game, 3-0. Going back down there. You guys know my nephew Hayden going back down to the game. But aside for the game, you know how I like statistics and numbers, and if you ever want to make a little money off someone you're sitting next to at a baseball game, I have a statistic for you. And I don't know if I've ever shared you with Dennis.
That's gonna be good.
But you can make a bet with somebody when there's a full count. Have you ever heard about this? A full count in almost any occasion. Do you know what happens on the next pitch?
Foul ball.
80% of the time.
Foul ball.
Yep. 80% of the time.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I tell you, it was about 95 yesterday. There was a kid sitting next to me who randomly just knew my niece and her boyfriend from Indiana, but I didn't take any money from them. But let's
3-0 win. Pitching's unbelievable. Tigers, we don't talk hockey ever again on this show, so I know they're riding me a little bit. It wasn't a good start. So let's move on from sports.
Okay, let's talk weather.
Weather Network now. We go from birthdays to sports to the Weather Network. Weather Network.
Yeah, I mean, so Hurricane Milton obviously made landfall, and from what we can see, it does not look like it was as bad as advertised, knock on wood. And that's not to say there isn't still severe damage in certain parts, and that there are certainly people's lives who have been overturned by this storm. But as far as like the worst storm in U.S. history, it doesn't look like that as of right now. So with that said, a lot of the stocks that we talked about in terms of, getting hit really hard are actually trading higher this morning. If you look at the American Coastal Insurance Corporation, up 7%. You look at the Mosaic one, the phosphate one we talked about, up 0.5%. So a lot of these stocks that were getting hammered in anticipation of the storm are actually now trading higher because from what we can tell, again, as of right now, it's not as bad as some people expected. And I'll admit, I was certainly in that camp of like, holy cow, this looks terrible from everything I can tell. I was scared of it, and I seems like I was wrong on it, and it's not as bad. So, I don't know exactly how they got that wrong in terms of. I guess it slowed down a lot before it hit.
I think it downgraded. It hit as a low 3. It hit in pretty much the perfect spot. Obviously, not in Fort Myers. You don't like that it hit there. But if this thing would have went north of Tampa and the storm surge would have happened to go in Tampa, it would have been much worse. But because it went in south of Tampa, the water actually pulled out of Tampa
Yeah.
Bay for the majority of the night. Obviously, rainfall was an issue. I know they got about a foot of rain in 3 hours, which is absolutely incredible. Disney even got a pile of rain. There's pictures of the Magic Kingdom flooded because obviously the rain was so significant. But this could have been much worse. You know, if it would have hit a little bit as a 4, it would have been a disaster. But again, because where it hit, being south of Tampa Bay, you basically spare, you know, most of the damage from, you know, Tampa, which is obviously the most populated city in that area. So that's the good news. I mean, the bad news is there's still lots of damage. It's going to be, you know, a lot of people, you know, suffering. There was one reported death. We do believe Lieutenant Dan is alive. I've heard he is alive this morning. If you're following the Lieutenant Dan story, he was staying on his boat in Tampa Bay, his sailboat, one-legged Tampa Bay resident. Lieutenant Dan said he's riding out the boat on his sailboat and said he's good to go. If the water goes up, he goes up. If the water goes down, he goes down. We do have confirmation here this morning that he has survived. So good job, Lieutenant Dan, riding out the storm, literally.
Yeah, I was texting you yesterday, and I was focusing in on those maps, and it just kind of, you know, you were looking at it, and it just kind of looked like the trajectory of it. It looked like it was going to pass through and then pick up again on the other, you know, once it got off the coast. So, and also, I'm telling you, I texted Fari. He has his double generators.
Yeah. How's
Naples wasn't
Fari?
that bad. Fari's good. Captain Tico's good.
Excellent.
I texted Rob I
How's
was
Rob?
texting with Rob last night. He says there's probably, you know, he's in on Naples. He goes, there's probably more wind in West Bloomfield right now than there is down here. So thank God. I mean, it's over. I was watching that during the game and everything. I was watching that GNRC all day,
Yeah.
and it just didn't have the perkiness, you know. And
No,
I
you could
think,
tell.
yeah,
And the hurricane and the insurance stocks were rallying yesterday. They were kind of feeling it that it wasn't going to be as bad as we thought a couple days earlier. So great point, Joel. I mean, you can bring up all the insurance stocks too. They are all trading higher here this morning. Allstate trading higher, PGR trading higher. To AB's point, the ones more directly impacted, like your ACIC, is trading up 8% here this morning.
HRTG
trading up almost 10% here this morning. HCI is another one. It's up 5% here this morning. So you can see a relief rally in a lot of the insurers, as obviously the damage looks like it's going to come in, you know, a lot less. I mean, they're trying to sensationalize it, the media does. And again, it is a bad storm, but they are scrambling, you know, in Tampa. They keep talking about the roof blowing off at the
yeah, I
Tropicana
know.
Center. Well, it's a plastic temporary roof. So it's literally a piece of plastic. So, I mean, you're trying to scramble for disasters. This is fantastic news. If this is the worst, you know, disaster in the Tampa area, and I'm sure it's not, you know, we've done pretty well on this. I was very worried about my father-in-law's place. He's in Gulfport. So far, to my understanding, he's okay, or his place is okay there too. So excellent news that this was a lot worse or a lot better than what some people expected.
Yeah, and I saw some people in the chat talking about that the media was blowing it out of proportion too. And while that is certainly a thing that happens, that, you know, outlets will sensationalize headlines to get more clicks. I think, you know, you go back a couple days ago, I think it did look very bad. And I think a lot of people anticipate. I think we just got lucky, and you know, it's amazing that it wasn't as bad as it was advertised to be. But I don't think it was all just media blowing it out of proportion for clicks. I think it truly looked like it was going to be really, really bad. And then we got lucky that it did kind of slow down, get downgraded before it hit. So, you know, I think it's one of those things where I think a little bit of both can be true. That obviously the media does like to sensationalize things, but that at the time, the people reporting that it was supposed to be like the worst storm of or one of the worst storms in U.S. history, it did look like that. So either way, you know, it's a great news that it is not as bad as some people were.
It is a big deal, and we're not trying to say that this isn't a big deal. Some people in the chat are getting upset with us because obviously there's a lot of people who have some damage to their homes. They're suffering. We're just saying it was expected, and the insurance stocks are telling you it was expected to be much worse. It was expected to be a hell of a lot worse. This is not going to be, I don't believe this is going to be a Katrina situation here. Obviously, we're still finding out about details here, but the insurance stocks are telling you it's not Katrina. And, GNRC even being down today is telling you this is not Katrina. And that's good news, folks. That's good news.
Dennis, maybe you're the true hurricane indicator.
Why is that?
Because I mean, you sold your GNRC yesterday morning or early.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I again, this is typically, so we're talking trading here, not talking the storm, but typically what happens is GNRC runs up ahead of the hurricane and sells off after. I've traded this for years. Doesn't always have to do it. On Helene, it actually continued to go. I think a little bit of that was because
the next one.
And the next one was coming. So that was definitely a thing that held it up. But also because Helene had a lot of damage, maybe more than we expected. In some cases, it's just like an earnings report. It's about expectations. And when you're expecting, that, well, this is hitting the panhandle, it's not as populated up there, but there was so much damage even in the Tampa area on that because it was south of it. And then, in the Carolinas, Helene, I think, and it's a good thing, but it looks like Helene is going to be more of damage than Milton. And 2 days ago, nobody would have said that.
Well, we'll keep monitoring this situation, but as of now, like I said, it's so far obviously not, positive news, but it's positive in the sense that it hasn't been, again, as bad as some people were anticipating.
Good enough says there's another one coming. I'm not aware of this. I know there's a Leslie. I did look at the hurricane map this morning, way out in the middle of the Atlantic. It looks like it's doing nothing. So I don't know if he's or she is looking at something else that I'm not looking at, but I'm not aware of another one coming right now.
All right. Well, let's move on for now to China real quick. So, of course, in the last couple of weeks, we had the violent rally to the upside. And in the past few days, the violent sell-off as people took profits. And this morning, it looks like we've got some stabilization in China. The FXI is up 1.5%. So I don't know if this was on specific news or if people are now just, okay, it sold off a little bit and now finally maybe starting to consolidate a little bit here, which, Joel, you said that's exactly what you wanted if you were in Baba here, some consolidation. So it appears like that's what we're getting.
The undercut, I mean, if you play the strategy of the undercut and rally of the previous day's low, it definitely undercut that. And then it found a nice area, right? Area, your previous three lows. Wow. I never noticed that. 106, you had three lows at the end of September, early October. Now what you look at here, always very important, and we'll move on for this. We got a lot to cover. But look at the half of the move. You went 118, you went 106, 12. So let's see if we can get back to 112. You get back to 112, get a bid, and then, hey, the party continues. But look at that for all your individual stocks. But at least a little stabilization, little consolidation here in Baba.
All right. Well, biggest headline of today, of course, is going to be, or at least this morning, the CPI report coming up here in about 15 minutes, 17 minutes here. So I'll give you guys the what we're expecting. And of course, we will have Blue Putnam joining us to walk us through that inflation report. So the forecast is for the CPI of September to be 0.1%. So it was 0.2% in August. It's expected to drop to 0.1%. Core CPI is expected to be 0.2%. It was 0.3% the month prior. Core or CPI year over year is expected to be 2.3%, falling down from 2.5%. So we talk about where the bar is, where the expectations are, that those expectations are for inflation to continue falling in the month of September. Core CPI year over year is expected to stay pat at 3.2%. So again, we're looking for 2.3% year over year CPI, 3.2% core CPI. And I'll walk through those one more time around 8:29 right before those numbers come out.
I mean, it's all that matters here, folks. So we can look at technicals on everything for you in the next 15 minutes, but everything is going to change 15 minutes from now. We're going to have new information. CPI is going to move the markets. Obviously, the TLT has just been an epic disaster. Such a fantastic call from Jim Tassoni, who was on our show and the thing was over $100 and saying he's short and thinks it's coming in. Nobody had that trade. Jim did. I don't know if he's covered it or not. He was talking about a target. I think his target was 95, which is an excellent trade. 195 on the TLT is just impressive.
That's a big move.
That's a huge move. I mean, you're talking about, like that's a huge move for the TLT. It continues to leak here. Obviously, that's going to move the most off of this data. And then the IWM, which hasn't been able to pick it up since the last CPI report, really wants to see a light number here. If for whatever reason it comes in even a smidgen hot, IWM will get slaughtered. So this number is very important. We always say they're always important, the CPI numbers, but it's very important to the small caps. And you can tell the market is a little bit nervous about this because you still have this flight to quality in tech where NVIDIA has been going up seemingly every day. Obviously, the QQQs are holding up very well, strong yesterday as well. And IWM really going nowhere. So there's separation still happening here. The big thing why that is because even if we start slowing down the pace, like even if they don't cut, tech stocks still, the market feels tech stocks are still a safe place to be. Higher rates or lower rates, they still feel tech wins. That's not the case with so many other stocks. Obviously, we know solar is going to be directly impacted. If you want to trade the highest beta, you're going to look at the TAN. And the TAN has just quietly leaked back the majority of its gains. Yeah, so that's telling you issues there as well. I mean, Solar Edge, which has just been an epic disaster, is back down near the lows. ENPH has been back down near the lows. And then First Solar, which is best of breed, is leaking as well here. So watch for the movement off this. Light number, Solar rips. Hot number, Solar gets hit hard.
A couple things here. I think right now a half is off the table. They're looking more at a quarter, maybe absolutely nothing at all. Remember, it's the day after Election Day. And then number two, and we could talk about this with Blue when he comes on. I mean, where was crude when you took this reading? I mean, it's such you talk about a lagging indicator. Yeah, they might, this month may be good. You have the month over month comparisons coming down here. So I think, likely you get a good number here, but then the expectations are, well, where was crude at? 64, 65, some of the other commodities. I think, overall consumer, I mean, I was, bought a few things at the stadium yesterday, America Park, and man, whew, there's still some inflation over there.
You can't base anything off of stadium prices, Joel. Come on now.
Are they still going up, the stadium prices?
Oh my gosh.
What's it cost? Did you get a beer? What's it cost for a beer?
$16.
Is it $16?
I got a 24-ounce Coors Light, so it's basically.
Are you serious?
2 beers.
It's $16 for a beer now.
Well, okay, but if it was $8 for a 12-ounce can at a stadium, like I wouldn't think that's that crazy. So $16 for a 24-ounce. I mean, trust me, I don't like to pay that price, but it's. I mean, you go to any stadium and it's going to be crazy. Besides, I think
it's over. I think it was up to $22 or $23, in Toronto. So, but again, you got the exchange rate. But I mean, just the amount of money. Like again, you can't say inflation. It's always inflation everywhere, especially in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, the game yesterday. I think we should start talking about the sports again because
keep going.
I just cannot believe the Detroit Tigers. They were out of it. They were like
I know
they were 10 games out of it like a couple months ago, and now they're a game away from going to the ALCS. Then they might be 4 games away from going to the World Series. I mean, it's incredible. The energy there, Joel, was on a scale from 1 to 10.
Oh, it was incredible. That's what I went. I mean,
and we're going back, we're going back today. I have a busy day.
I'll go back today.
I have a really busy day today. You guys know what I'm doing before the Tigers game at 6 p.m.?
You're going to cover Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump is speaking at the Detroit Economic Club here in town,
wow.
And I got put on the media list, so I got to go like immediately after this show. And I don't know what that security process is going to be like getting in, but I can't imagine it's going to be
pretty intense.
It's going to be intense, especially
those are two. Just be careful out there, AB. If you see the shoots, duck.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be on high alert
High alert. He's trying to be assassinated twice already here.
I mean, yeah, and it'll be interesting, I guess, to hear what he says, and I guess see him in person. But it'll be, I don't know. I'm excited. It'll be interesting. At the very least, it'll be interesting.
Okay, we're losing them again.
All right, we're losing them.
Back, and now we're losing everybody in the chat. They hate sports.
This
chat is stocks and only stocks.
It was my fault there. I'll take the blame on that. Let's go to some okay.
Tesla.
How
do we not preview Tesla?
Oh no.
Well, we're going to. So
you want to do it at the end?
No. Well, we have earnings too, but we can talk Tesla real quick. We got about 10 minutes before the.
No, we're not talking Tesla.
I am getting messages left, right, and center. What are you doing with your Tesla? What are you doing with your Tesla? What are you doing with your Tesla? It's all they're attacking me. It's the biggest position in my long-term portfolio. I have no trade on, all long-term. I've not sold a share. Now, again, part of me thinks, here's my thought process, is a lot of me thinks that this could be a disappointing event, that the stock could go down like $20 on it. It's not a trade. If I had it on for a trade, I would sell it. If I had this on and I was up 40 or 50 or 60 points, which I'm up 60 points, I believe, on it right now, and it was a trade, I would sell it. I don't think I'm going to sell any. Obviously, I haven't fully decided yet, but I'm leaning towards selling none. One, because it's in the long-term portfolio, and I believe in the long-term story here. But two, what the setup here is a little bit more interesting than we're used to. It is up today, but there's been no run-up into this event. None. And I think that's because everybody is expecting a lot. Not everybody's a tough word, but a lot of people are expecting this to be a flop. A lot of people are saying, well, FSD isn't close. How are you coming out with a robotaxi? So I think there's a lot of expectations that this is going to be a flop. And maybe it is. Maybe everybody's going to be right and it's going to be a flop and the stock's going to fall 10% today. It's possible. But if there's any hint that, we didn't think about that, you could see a rally in this because there has really been no run up into the event. If this would have ran from 240
to so there's been no run up over the last week or so. The stock was at 182 on August 5th, and it went to 260. So maybe you didn't get your immediate.
You think the run already happened? Run up into the event?
Yeah. And now if you and I don't know if there was an earnings or whatever in there, you had a nice rally in the market. If you're just not like holding on for the long term like you are, then there has been a run up. If you're playing this technically, fundamentally, Elon Muskingly, I mean, there has been a run up. I want to say two things. One, it's just all about 240 here. And I have no idea if it's going to zigzag, go to 260, but that's an area. If it's saying holds a solid 240 bid, even if it breaks down to 220, comes back and holds 240, that's the level in that. And then the second thing, and I may be showing some of my ignorance here about the truck. Okay. But Dennis, what is like your truck? Like, what's one of the primary reasons you have your truck?
The haul shit, do shit with it.
Okay. And I look at the Cyber. So what do? Do you take the sides off the Cyber truck to haul stuff? I have no idea.
It's not built for. It's not like a pickup. They're trying to, say to be used as a pickup. But so full disclosure, I will not get a Cyber truck. There's no way I'm going to get a Cyber truck. One, because it's $180,000 Canadian. That's what it is over here, 180 grand, which is just insane. But we've got to remember, this isn't really about the Cyber truck here. This is about the robotaxi and full self-drive. I think, a lot of people really do. Like, Shaq has one. There's a lot of people. The Cybertruck is actually doing quite well. People are saying it's not doing well. That is not the case. Their wait list is huge. They're trying to produce these things. They're actually selling these things. So it's not like, they're all sitting on the lots and they're not selling. You can't even get them in Canada yet. There is a huge wait list here. So that's such a small portion of the revenue. Right now, the main thing is with Tesla is it's still a car company, but they're working on so many other things. And a Cybertruck is not going to be like, the Cybertruck's going to move the needle. What's going to move the needle is if they can solve FSD. What's going to move the needle is if they get a humanoid that actually can do stuff. The energy business is interesting. But you know what else is going to eventually move the needle? Is the semi. The semi truck is very interesting. And I just wonder a bit, predicting it here, I wonder a bit if there isn't something about the semi truck and full self-drive today. And if they come out with full self-drive, and again, it's not going to be ready. FSD is not ready. But if they're hinting that they're looking at, starting to almost like a shipping company at Tesla where FSD semi, I think the stock could rally on that. And I do think that they've been, we know that PepsiCo's got a bunch of them. The semis are out there. They're obviously not FSD yet, but just imagine the possibilities if you were to get a full self-drive semi. That is a game changer, and that is a needle mover.
Oh, man.
So if there's hinting of that coming, and again, Musk's timelines are always too aggressive, and we know it's probably going to be aggressive again. But if there is a hint of an FSD semi, that could be something the stock could rally on.
But Dennis, so you bring up a good point, just in the fact that a lot of times when you have sell the news events, there's the run up into the event, but maybe so many people are anticipating this be a sell the news event that there hasn't been this run up into the event, which actually kind of lowers the bar for expectations.
That's what I'm saying, AB. I think there's actually been a sell off into the event.
Yeah,
obviously we got hit from 260 to 250 on the numbers. They weren't great, but then we've been hanging out here for the better part of 7 trading sessions and leaking. And I think it's nervousness. I think there's people who are nervous. I'm somewhat nervous and are up like 50, 60 points in Tesla and saying, I'm ringing the register because this is going to disappoint. I think the bar is lower than you think here.
Last thing on the Tesla, because I did write an article about this yesterday. One of our editors asked me. So this was a note from Ming-Chi Ku, who is actually a Apple analyst primarily, but wrote this note about Tesla and basically saying that looking at Tesla's supply chain, that it doesn't look like mass production until 2027 may mean that full self-driving couldn't achieve level 4 capability until after 2027. So this analyst was basically saying the same thing you're saying, Dennis, was that for a short-term trade that maybe some people might be overly optimistic. But if you're a long-term, the above analysis focuses only on the short-term impact of this week's Tesla event on the stock price. Long-term investors could disregard the above analysis. So basically saying the same thing you're saying, Dennis, that short-term, this might be further down the road than people think. But if you're a long-term Tesla investor, you're not as worried about the volatility that could come from today's event.
It's all about FSD for the long term. So, and again, if I had this on for a trade, I will say it right now, I would sell it. If you've got it on for a trade, just my opinion, I would sell it because it's just an unknown risk factor.
Are we going to have time to do Delta earnings?
Points.
Yeah, let's go to Delta.
No, not before. Do it after, Joel.
All right.
I know you're trying to squeeze in. We got CPI in 2 minutes, though.
All right, let's do CPI then.
There's two. People want to talk Tesla yesterday. We didn't talk yesterday at all. We didn't talk the day before. We didn't talk the day before that. So, I mean, it's the day today. So I know people hate Tesla. There's a lot of people that actually love Tesla too. So you love it or you hate it. You hate it, Joel, that's fine, but we still
I don't hate it. I just think we could just we started talking about it at 8:20. It's 8:28.
All right. Well, either way, we got CPI coming up in 2 minutes here. I told you I'd give you guys those preview numbers again. We do got Blue hanging out backstage. Okay. So again, the numbers here will be coming in like 90 seconds. We're looking for 0.1% CPI in September. It was 0.2% in August, so that is expected to drop. Core CPI is expected to be at 0.2%. Core CPI year over year is expected to be 2.3%. That would be down from 2.5%. So we're seeing the year over year CPI. The expectations are for that to continue to drop. Core CPI year over year, however, is expected to stay pat at 3.2%. So all in all, the expectations are for inflation, the inflation data to continue to for that to show that inflation has continued to fall in the month of September. And we're now less than a minute away from getting those numbers. We'll give them to you here as soon as we get them. And then we'll talk to Blue Putnam after about the reaction. to those numbers. So,
okay, all right, here we are. Here's the setup. Down 5.5 handles here. All-time closing high, 41.25. All-time high, 46.50. Resistance, very little. Easier to find than support. Pre-market low, 58.28. We're getting some algo jumpers here. Ooh, it might be a little hot, folks. It might be
whoa.
hot. Whoa, look out below. There she goes.
Wait,
Well,
but
we'll see.
hot's good because hot's not good because it means we're not going to get rate cuts. Okay, here we go. Month over month CPI for September, 0.2% versus 0.1% estimated. So that did come in hotter than expected. Core CPI year over year, 3.3% versus the 3.2% expected. So that was hotter than expected. U.S. core CPI month over month for September, 0.3 versus 0.2 expected. So hot across the board so far.
All right, Fed funds tool is now plunging right now to a 1/4 point hike in November. I'm being facetious, folks. A little bit of a hot number. We don't even know where this was with the current crude reading. You got a little knee-jerk reaction up. I'm seeing, well, you didn't quite make a high. There's really nothing. I did see it go, I thought I saw it go a little bit green. Yeah, this is a 1 minute. It went green. Did it match the high? Let's see here. Let's go to a little bit longer term chart. But what we need to know now, yeah, made a new high. And here we are coming down. So not what the market expected here. I thought it would come in a little bit light, but really in reality, down 15 handles. Is this really a big deal when you look at the move? Do you have, before we bring Blue in, do you have any more details on the inflation numbers?
So far, not yet in terms of what buckets were driving the inflation. But the U.S. CPI year over year for September came in at 2.4% versus the 2.3% estimated. So really, like all the numbers across the board for this report have come in basically 0.1% higher than the expectation. So it's not like anything was, oh my God, super, super hot, but just a little bit hotter than expected. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets spun because on one hand, you could say that's, it's terrible that the inflation didn't drop as much as it was expected. On the other hand, you could say the economy is still looking like it's hot. Otherwise, you would have seen inflation fall more. So I think there's a reason that you're seeing that the market isn't getting absolutely clobbered on this. It's down very mildly, and let's bring Blue on and see what Blue thinks.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, I think you have high expectations, low expectations, and I'm not really talking about the numbers. I'm talking about what the market did yesterday. The market made a new all-time high yesterday. Not all your stocks did and everything, but I think he had a high bar. But let's go. Let's get to the man that's been following this for us for a couple years now, and he's been nailing it. Go ahead, roll. All right. It's time for an economic update on the inflation picture. We are joined by the former chief economist of the CME, now a consultant. Blue, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to bring the your information up, but give us a gut check here. Well, what's your first reaction to these numbers?
Well, the consensus was off by 1/10 everywhere. I mean, economists aren't that good. So this is not a market moving number at all. It just didn't confirm the decline in inflation. This chart you just put up was, of course, at 829, but it's not going to move very much. So, I don't think there's any real news here to change expectations. We did get some other data while you guys were talking, though. We got the weekly unemployment jobs insurance claims, and they were a little elevated. So you get a 1/10 higher inflation number, and you get a little bit more, weakness in the job market. By the way, that weakness is all about the Hurricane Helene that came through and knock some things out. And so if you're looking at jobs data over the next couple of weeks or months, it's going to be all messed up. So it won't impact the Fed either. So this is steady as you go.
Some rule and inverted yield curve both be wrong this time?
Both be wrong. Yeah, I mean, we're not having a recession. That's pretty clear. We are slowing down a little bit. The economy, the demographics are aging. The labor force growth isn't quite as powerful as it was earlier. The post-pandemic surge is done. But the economy's fine. There's nothing, rippling through the economy that's going to send it into a recession. So we're in good shape. And inflation is going to come down too, but it got stuck at in that range, 2.5%, a little higher, depending on which metric you're looking at. And I don't think we break out of that so easily. As we all know, the shelter component is what's keeping everything elevated. That's not changed. So here
What
we
about
are,
let me
25
get-
basis points every Fed meeting until something changes.
So you still think they're going 25 in November, hell or high water?
Oh yeah, because Fed funds, still at, they're trading about 4.8, 4.85. That's way above 2.5, 3% inflation rate. So, they need to get things a little bit more in line with reality. In the longer you keep an inverted yield curve, it's barely inverted. We're only inverted now between Fed funds and the 2-year. But, the terminal rate that the Fed's probably aiming at, well, they don't know what they're aiming at.
Could you explain that term, Blue? Terminal rate?
It just means what's the lowest rate we get on this cycle. So how low are they going to go? All right. And I think they will have two things in mind. They're going to want the Fed funds rate to be above the prevailing inflation rate. And they're going to want the Fed funds rate to be below the 10-year yield. So a positive shaped yield curve, but a premium over inflation. Those are the two things that I think the Fed will be aiming for when it looks for, they use the term neutral Fed funds rate. Some people call it R star. This is a mythical concept. It's a moving target and it doesn't exist and you can't observe it, but you can kind of guess the way I just did. Positive shaped yield curve and a small premium above the inflation rate, and you're probably in neutral territory.
So, Blue, you mentioned that the shelter component of the CPI is still causing some stickiness there. What needs to be done to, finally bring inflation lower for the shelter and the housing and rental parts of the CPI?
Pretty much nothing. The the apartment market is going to probably settle in at maybe 3.5%, 4% inflation. There's definitely a little bit inflation there. Shelter is 1/3 of the CPI. It's a little less on that than for the PCE that the Fed likes. So if everything else is a little bit above 1% and 1/4 to 1/3 is at 4%, you're going to have a pretty good inflation rate, very close to 2%. So we just have to wait for this number to come into line. But the housing market is very confusing, if you will, because so many people are sitting on very low mortgages. They don't want to sell their house, so you don't have the supply coming in. We did get mortgages peaking, 30-year peaked above 7%. It's gone down into the low 6s. That's not enough to get a lot of people to sell, but it's, it helps.
Blue, what about year-over-year comparisons? That you tied to something you've talked about that, we've had over the years. We've had the higher rates, and now the comparisons getting tougher and tougher. That's going to continue, correct?
Oh, yes. The easy comparisons to bring inflation down are done. And that's kind of the reason we're stuck in this 2.5%, 3% range, depending on, which metric you want to look at. And year over year is a very tricky concept anyway. I mean, if you're in financial markets and you're in the business of trading, the last piece of data you see is way more important than a piece of data from a year ago. And that's the problem with year over year comparisons, is that they're a little bit, well, you get September data and you drop a data point from a year ago. Well, they get equal weight. That's no fun. For me, anyway, the more recent data is important, and we're getting pretty sticky in here. But we've made awesome progress. There's plenty of room for the Fed to ease. It's just if you're religious about a 2% target, you might not get there anytime soon.
What about the effect of the hurricanes? I mean, that can't be factored in. I mean, obviously, there's going to be more money have to be printed. I mean, that's going to be something moving forward. How are the hurricanes going to affect the inflation outlook moving forward?
Well, they don't have much of an impact on inflation because they're very regionalized. Florida for Milton, and Florida, Georgia, North Carolina for Helene. But they do affect jobs data because some companies can't operate; they have to close for a while. So, as I mentioned, you're going to see some slightly higher unemployment, slightly higher insurance claims, not as many new payroll jobs when the numbers come out on November 1st. But that's all going to be, or at least most of it's going to be explained by the hurricane. So, the Fed and everybody else will look through that. In terms of how much this will cost the federal budget deficit and so forth, the FEMA has enough money for these two hurricanes, but they don't have any money left. So if we get a new disaster, then Congress is going to have to come up with some more money. And it really, they probably should do it sooner than later, but they won't. So that's the way it is.
Crude. Let's talk crude oil here. Boy, a lot of volatility because of the Middle East situation. So here you are, Blue. Help me out. Crude bottoms at 64.40 on a November 11th. Trades over $78 on October 8th. Could you please tell me where the CPI reading is? What crude? Where is it trading? What date? To me, that seems to be a big mystery. Do you have that information?
I got all of it. No, the oil market is trading two different views of the future, two scenarios. One scenario is China is still weak. They did all that stimulus. None of that's going to work to help the economy. It did help the equity market, but that's done too. So, one scenario is the oil price drifts down because demand is weak and supply is coming back on. And the other scenario is the Middle East conflict expands rather dramatically and oil supplies are hit. And now we're talking $100 plus oil. If you look at the options market on WTI options, you will see that there's quite a bit of open interest above $100. There's a bunch at 120, 125, and there's even a little spike way out there at 150. You only have those forecasts. Those really aren't forecasts. Let me start over. You only are worried about that if there's an expansion of the Middle East, of the conflict. And, it's a low probability event, but it's been rising. So to get to your question about the volatility, the market is trading the probability weighted average of these two scenarios. And if you wake up one morning and you think Middle East is escalating, oil goes up 3 or 4%. And if you wake up the next day and say, wow, nobody bombed anybody, it's down 2 or 3%. So, you've got a lot of volatility day to day, but you're still in the range. You really haven't broken out because you're these two oil demand weakness versus Middle East are fighting each other.
Okay. All right. We've been on the line with Blue Putnam, former chief economist in my old stomping grounds, the CME, now a consultant on the inflation picture. Blue, we hope the numbers they give are true. Let's let you go for the day, and I'm going to send you an invite for next month's CPI numbers. PPI tomorrow, not as important. Thank you very much, Blue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blue. Have a good day.
Okay, let's bring Triple D back in here, and really not much of a reaction to the upside here, Dennis.
On mute.
Unbelievable. I pulled a Joel. A little fake out. We sold off hard on the initial number. Then we spiked right back up. The algos were like, oh, buy the dip. Oh, no, don't buy the dip. And now we're continuing to dip here. Even the TLT had a little fake out where it hit, and then it popped back up and actually went green for a brief second. And now it's starting to leak here again, too. I mean, it's across the board leakage here. The market doesn't like the number. I mean, there's no way. We get some numbers like the jobless claims numbers, like, oh, the economy's hot or the economy's, slowing down. Well, that's good for interest rates. CPI, you can't sugarcoat it. It's hot, it's bad, it's cold, it's obviously good. And that's it. And it's a little bit hot. Not super hot, 1%, like Blue was saying, the economists don't get it perfect, so they were 1% out. But the market doesn't want to see 1% on the upside. They want to see 1% error on the downside, where it comes in 1/10
of a 1%.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 1/10%. Yeah, not 1%. 1% would be insane, but 0.1%, 0.1%. So I think just look at this markets, and we've sold off significantly. 20 points from the highs here. I think the market continues to digest this number. We do have this buy the dip mentality in tech. So if I was going to buy the dip, it would probably be tech stocks here today. I would probably lay off the IWM because the relative strength hasn't been great on it yesterday, and this does nothing. Can we look at the Fed tool? Does it adjust that quickly, AB, or not quite that quickly?
Yeah, it does. So if we look at the Fed Watch tool for the November meeting, it is now saying there's an 88.3% chance that we get a quarter basis point cut. There's an 11.7% chance that interest rates stay the same where they're at now at 475.
No chance of a 50 now.
0% chance of a 50. If you go back 1 week ago, it was a 30% chance of a 50. Now they're saying there's no chance. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Dennis, I mean, the numbers it's not what the market was looking for, but also I like Blue said, it's kind of a non-factor that they missed by 0.1% across the board. You do, unsurprisingly, IWM was leaking more than the overall market here. It was trading down more than 1%. Now it looks like in the last minute or two has started to come back a tiny bit here. Some people buying the dip on the IWM. It looks like it reached a low of around 215.5 and has since come back above 216 here. So it'll be interesting to see if IWM can catch some legs on this little on people buying the dip here.
There is the buy the dip mentality still out there. Again, I think they're going to be more inclined to buy the dip on tech as opposed to the IWM. We're not seeing that yet, though. The QQQs are at near the lows of the session here. So down point. Well, we're off the lows there too, a little bit, 0.5%. So what am I doing on this? Probably nothing. I mean, I think from the long-term portfolio, again, I trade everything, but from an investing standpoint, long-term investing standpoint, I don't think I'm nervous on this number and saying I need to get out of stocks now. I don't think I'm also, hungry for stocks and I'm like, need to get in stocks. I'm kind of just feeling complacency as a long-term investor.
I mean, we can move on to earnings after this, but is this really a dip? I mean,
I don't know. Not much. Nvidia's down $1 after running 20.
Yeah, S&Ps are 20 handles off the all-time closing high. So I think you got to put everything in perspective. Also,
think so too.
PPI, the number comes out tomorrow. Excuse me on that cough. All right. Everyone has been clamoring for Delta earnings. So let's soar into those.
All right, Delta reported earnings this morning. Let's go ahead and get those numbers pulled up here. So looks like EPS came in at $1.50, missed the $1.52 estimate. Sales came in at $15.67 billion, beat the $14.67 billion estimate. So is that right? They beat revenue by that much? Sales? All right, so sales beat by $1 billion. The EPS missed there by 2 cents. Let's see. Issues Q4 outlook as Q3 profit, revenue lag estimates. I've seen some kind of mixed things here. Either way, the reaction is the stock is down 58 cents, a little bit more than 1% here. So looks like it dipped more than that, and then people came back and bought it up after the report.
It looks like they hammered it. What did we get down to? Under 48, Joel?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this thing. 47.46, Dennis.
Mm-hmm. Not
That
far
was a
from the
dip.
46.90 low.
Yeah.
Yeah, those lows work. Like, and Joel teaches this as level analysis there, but just basic simplistic technical analysis is, we look where you got a number there. The number that stands out is 46.90. It didn't quite get down there, but it was probably predictable that this wasn't that bad of a number. And if it was going to bounce, it was probably going to be, around that 47 area. So bounce a little bit ahead of that, maybe people getting ahead of it, but it's come right back. I mean, we're almost to a point where we're flat here now.
It's
so
flat.
yeah, so we've come back. Buy the dip mentality is still out there, Joel. It's going to be hard to break that buy the dip mentality.
I agree. I'm just saying I don't know how to measure the degree of this dip. Now, that was a dip. I mean, considering, you were 52 a couple days ago, then you came to this area, you snap right back. I think what you got to, I mean, we went over 52. Was that just a crazy print there at 52.25? I don't know why someone would do that. That was above yesterday's high, but I think long
Might have been a
term,
bad print.
yeah,
Let me go
for
look.
you, yeah, an odd lot or something, or
No,
a
look.
fat finger. But I just take the perspective, you're really interesting over 52. So I think your longer term investors are saying, yay, we're going to shrug this off. This 52 to 54 area, you had all this congestion in May. You just recent high of the move right there. You're $2 off it. $5 bounce. Anybody that scalped it, they're like 52. You're giving me unchanged, and I can sell the 52. So there's a longer term look at UA Delta. I mean, that's all I fly. They're incredible. I mean,
I like Delta
service.
too.
I mean,
It's
on
fantastic.
time. I mean,
The stock or to fly it?
Fly it.
I know. I like it a lot.
I know.
Yeah, the stock. Let's be honest here. Has there been any really good airline investment in the last 20 years?
No.
Come on. I mean, yeah, if you bought the COVID lows on these, you're pretty happy. But look, bring up the real long-term chart on every single airline.
You can do Jets,
where was Delta
ETF.
20 years ago? Where was it? It was, 20 maybe too far. 10 years ago, same price. So for 10 years, Delta's been dead money for 10 years. Let's go LUV, which used to be best of breed. Not anymore, obviously. 10 years. Yeah, no, not really. $40, $30. They've lost money over the last 10 years in Delta, too. We know American Airlines has just been an epic disaster. Forget about that one. You don't even have to look at it. But it was $30 10 years ago. It's $10 today. So you absolutely got murdered on this one, too. UAL, kind of the same story. Up at 2014, $60, $60. I mean, these are just not good long-term investments. The airlines are just, you can time them. They're cyclical. When they really get crushed, there's an opportunity. Obviously, after COVID, there was an opportunity. But for the most part, airlines just not good long-term investments.
TWA, US Air. You know what I think? The post-COVID, and I know they talk about this, I don't think the corporate travel is ever going to get back to where it was. And I think that that's a big component.
Oh, for
I mean,
sure.
it's just, I mean, Zoom, Teams, all these things, it's just, it's a big, just from a cost perspective. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, do things in person, but there it is. Delta, just keep an eye on that 52 area. But back down here, down 90. And also, boy, this thing has had a nice run since the August 7th low. So a lot of people sitting a lot of profits on Delta Airlines. Did Domino's Pizza deliver good earnings?
Oh, I see what you did there, Joel. Pizza, deliver. I got it. You're not going to sneak that one by me. Domino's reported EPS of $4.19. That beat the $3.68 estimate. Sales came in at $1.08 billion. That missed the $1.1 billion estimate. So slight miss there. $20 million miss on the revenue, and then a beat on the EPS. And you're seeing the stock pretty flat all in all. I mean, you wouldn't even been able to tell that this company reported earnings with how flat the stock is. Declared a $1.51 dividend. Domino's continues to expect 7% plus annual global retail sales growth. So all in all, looks like it was a decent report. Obviously nothing, spectacular that would drive the price higher, and nothing bad that would drive the price lower.
23 times forward earnings. Again, food stocks just, obviously McDonald's trades with a premium, maybe Domino's Pizza should too, because it's probably best of breed. McDonald's is 23 times as well. Maybe that's the going rate, for stable earnings, 20 times earnings. But I don't know. I feel like 20 times earnings is still kind of expensive. So not looking but I'm trying to, it's always good to kind of think about valuation when you're looking at earnings reports too. And you're talking about 7% growth, which is not great. It's not a huge growth multiple. It's basically almost, like pretty low really when you're paying 23, 24 times earnings for something. I don't know. I think
it's not sexy. It's not sexy. I mean,
no, and it's not like, Domino's is dirt cheap here, and we need to, say, okay, well, they're still doing pretty good here. The growth phase of Domino's has slowed somewhat. Obviously the stock has been firing all cylinders for years. It's been a fantastic, unlike the airlines, Domino's Pizza has been a great long-term investment. For your 2018 is $150, but it has been choppy the last 3 or 4 years. I think this is kind of a curveball. I'm not even going to try to swing at this pitch.
What did you say about 19% sales growth? Did you say that?
7.
7?
7,
yes,
yeah.
7.
Are people going to eat 7% more pizza next quarter? I mean,
they're
next
still
year?
expanding a bit.
I mean, I don't know. Just a ballpark in this thing. I mean, I see a spike to 422. So if you want, more big rally, got to get over 422. I think the best thing for the Bulls today, regardless of what the high is you got to establish a bid over 420 here. Build a little. I mean, you had 2 higher lows going into the report, but not much. But I mean, it's no wing stop. I mean, well, that's pulled off its high, but I don't know. Restaurant stocks are tough. What's that? That
When
one
the growth starts to slow, they
Yeah.
really get themselves into
Look at
trouble. And
this
I don't think the
Bravo.
growth is slowing here yet, but it's not, firing on all
Well, we
cylinders.
did have
maybe like it was 2 years ago.
We did have a slowing growth story on Celsius, and that caused the
Yes.
stock to crater a few months ago. Went from $100 down to 30, but Celsius is showing its,
Life.
it's showing life, and it's doing what momentum stocks do and retail favorite stocks do. Is the have a big drawdown, and then when they start picking up momentum, they keep going. And yesterday, the stock closed up more than 6%. This morning, it's trading up another $1.50, up another 5% this morning. So Celsius showing some signs of life down here. And from a technical standpoint, I mean, you got down to where you had what? Were you going to say this, Joel?
No. I'm just like this move up just looks like nothing.
Oh,
Nothing.
I know, you can't even tell. I mean, when you look at like a weekly,
crushed so bad.
Yeah, but I was saying if you go all the way back, I'm looking on a daily chart on my screen. If you go all the way back to April 2023, you did have some kind of consolidation and support right around the $30 level, and that's kind of right where we got down to before getting a bounce here. So this will be interesting. I mean, I don't know, like I'm not going to trade it per se, but like I might throw some shares. I did have some shares of Celsius in my long-term portfolio, sold it on the way down, and now I might buy back in at $32.
Oh boy. Golden rule of technical analysis: sell the top of the page, buy the bottom of the page. That's when you used to have the books that you flip through. I don't know where it's going today or longer term, but I don't know if I'd run out here and buy it at $32. But if it came back down to the area of the formal triple top, just around $31, maybe try a little bit of a long there and then lean on the low of the move. If it doesn't dare to get there to fill the gap, there's a lot of people that are sitting on. I don't know what the short interest is on this thing, but man, you could have shorted this thing at $40, and I mean, there's still a lot of people sitting on profits, and it's always easier to buy into a falling market as to a rising market. But I had one of those drinks once, and I tell you, I'll just stick with my Costco coffee.
I'm going to give an analysis here. Might shock you because I've been bearish on the stock for a while here. I think the Celsius bottoms in. It's 28 times earnings here now. It's come down to to the point in the chat. It's like come down to monsters multiple here. There is some growth here still. If they show any smidgen of growth, reaccelerating just even a little bit, the stock actually has come to a valuation where it's starting to become attractive to value investors. I think there is still growth here. I think this thing at 29 times earnings is a buy. So I have no position in it here. But I'm actually writing it down. I'm interested in it.
Okay. All right. And you're interested?
I think it's come far enough down now where this growth stock is turning into a value area where there's still potential that this could start another growth cycle again. So I feel like you get like that potential. Now, again, if you start to see growth decelerate more, the stock can get hit farther. But I feel like this trading action the last couple of days makes me a little bit more excited. And you know what else I've been pair trading, which is completely irrelevant to the companies to each other. But guess which stock I pair trade this with lately? Nothing to do with it.
I'm not going
It
to
is
say
a retail stock.
I'm not going to say Monster because I know you just because I know
Monster Celsius we could do. But
I know
again,
this is one of your exotic ones.
Oh yeah, just a new relationship. But I've been
no one
noticing
else in the world will
no one else in the world
will
is
ever
recognizing
think
this.
of it.
No,
and
no.
you gave away retail. It's
Chad,
too
you
high.
got any guesses?
Dick's Sporting Goods.
No. Think about the same story. Growth accelerating, growth story, love stock, and then all of a sudden, it's turned. And it's turned on Nvidia.
Chipotle.
And it's turned, to
Elf. That's a good guess.
I think that's a good guess.
Chase is
all right. Wow, Chase Whitney got it, huh?
Well, I kind of got it too because I picked
free trial Benzinga Pro for that because that was impressive guessing. I have been trading Elf Beauty with Celsius, and you know what? It's been working really well. So look at Celsius and look at the chart and look at Elf Beauty. Similar, different businesses, but similar trajectory where they had the growth slowing, crushed the stock, to the tune of like 60% on Elf, to the tune of like 70% on Celsius. And now all of a sudden, Celsius is starting to turn. Makes me think that Elf Beauty could be starting to turn as well. Elf Beauty has not down today, but showing a little bit of life. I like the little double bottom in Elf Beauty at 100 and 100. Now it shows a little life yesterday along with the Celsius. I don't think it's a coincidence, folks. I think there is some algos that are trading these together here now too. CELH, Elf Beauty. Again, fundamentals completely different, earnings reports aside, but just that overall story has them linked to a certain extent here. If you start to see Celsius rise, I'd look for a rise in Elf Beauty too.
Yeah, and Fahrenheit.
That will no, I called it out of the chat, but I was saying that I deserve at least like half credit because I picked it out of all the other stocks in the
you
chat.
saw it and you're like, that's it.
Exactly. So Chase gets the full credit, but I get half credit. All right, that brings us to 9:01. We talked about a lot today between the Tigers, the Hurricane, CPI, the Tesla event, Delta earnings, Domino's earnings. So we got a jam-packed show today. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Please smash the like if you have not already. Joel, who do we have coming on with us tomorrow?
Eat 'em up, Tigers. Tomorrow we are going to have a look from the floor. Meridian Capital Partners, Jonathan Corpino will be joining us. I don't know if he's going to be on the floor or he's going to be at home, but I might be a little bit late tomorrow. It's not that late of a game, 6:08. So looking forward to see if the Tigers could close it out. Great information today.
AMD AI event today. Thank you, Wellness. We didn't give AMD any love here, but AI event today. It is trying to hold green here. Lisa Su will be on CNBC after 4 o'clock for an interview as well. Keep that in mind. If you're trading AMD today, is there an AI event day?
Well, I don't think it's going to get there. But if they really get enthusiastic out here, palms out at 187. I know that's $16 away, but this market can get carried away. But
Generac continuing to leak too, just trying to give you all the so you're seeing this hurricane trade come off. Beacon Roofing, BECN down significantly as well. Home Depot and Lowe's down significantly as well. The market is speaking, and the market is saying it's good news for Florida.
Good.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Again, thank you to everyone who tuned in. We do have live trading starting up after this, so make sure to stay tuned. We will see you guys tomorrow morning. Stay green until then, and let's go Tigers.